20 years is a long time. People can graduate college in 20 years. A lot of situations and shenanigans can transpire in between 2006 and 2026. And it's crazy to realize that we haven't gotten a true open world Superman video game since 2006. That is crazy. I, as a Superman fan, am so annoyed at that fact because Superman is my favorite hero of all time. Even though Batman and Spider-Man are amongst my subsequential favorite heroes, I will always love Superman as the best hero of all time because Superman has been there for me throughout the darkest times and the darkest periods of my life, and Superman has uplifted me into becoming who I am today. So it pains me to see my boy being shafted and neglected for 20 years. Right now, we are in the big year of 2026 and we still haven't received a true AAA Superman game. I am boiling with envy and jealousy when I am always looking at Spider-Man and Batman. Of course, I love both of their video games. Of course, I love both of their respected franchises. I love the Insomniac Spider-Man franchise. I love the Arkham franchise. Both franchises are peak. They are 10 out of 10, except for Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is like an 8.5 out of 10, but that's for a completely different video. But I'm going to still love both franchises, and I will also love adjacent games that are made and are featuring the titular characters known as Spider-Man and Batman. I will always play those games, but as I am playing these games, I just can't help but ponder the thought of what if Superman is receiving this same treatment, and it's annoying that we are not going to see this reality come to fruition anytime soon. But there is hope now because since James Gunn is tackling Superman in live action, he already gave us a great Superman movie last year in 2025, and I am confident enough to make this statement, and the statement that I'm going to say is that James Gunn is going to deliver again with Superman Man of Tomorrow. Since we are in the Superman era and we are in the Superman saga, I hope that we can get a Superman game down the line, possibly in under 5 years. That would be the ideal dream, and I will be so happy if that happens because I can't lie to you, bro, Superman's game catalog is not really that good when you actually look at all of the titles and all of the installments inside of the Superman franchise when you're looking at the video game front, because the worst game of all time, not even the worst superhero game of all time, not even the worst action game of all time, but the absolute worst game of all time was Superman 64. Thank God I never played it, but I was always watching that game as a kid, and I was always scratching my head and thinking to myself, this cannot be a real game. This cannot be something that was actually published by real people. I don't understand why that game was ever made because it put a permanent stain on the Superman video game franchise. And when we look at Superman's other video games like Superman the Man of Steel, that game had potential, but when you look at the gameplay, it's not that good. The gameplay is choppy, the gameplay is slow, the frame rate is very laughable, and it's not an appealing game to look at, in my honest opinion. The closest we have ever reached to pure greatness in a Superman video game is Superman Shadow of Apocalypse. That game was adapting the Superman the animated series, and when you actually watch that game and you look at what that game had to offer, you could actually get impressed. I played that game for a little bit when I was a little kid, but I could never ever complete that game due to my PS2 memory card's horrific habit of always restarting every single time I turned off the game. But I actually enjoyed myself when I was playing that game. That game was the closest we have gotten to a true Superman game, even though it wasn't open world and it was kind of linear with the missions. The story was great, the gameplay was solid, and the animation and the graphics looked really, really good for a 2002 video game. And the only polished open world Superman game we received was Superman Returns. That game had promise. That game had some sauce when you were flying with Superman. The cape physics looked really, really good. The city of Metropolis for the most part looked really good, and Superman's strength was insurmountable during this game. Superman had a lot of powers in this game. He had wind breath, heat vision, cold breath, super speed, super flight. He could do almost anything. That game could have been great, but they had a lot of problems that bogged down the true quality of this game. I'm not going to go into detail, but if you played that game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Metropolis health bar is a hint. I want to give an honorable shout out to The Death and Return of Superman, because even though that game was published and released in 1994, when you actually look at the gameplay, it actually slightly holds up in the modern day. Sure, yeah, a lot of the content that is found inside that video game is dated, but the story is still serviceable, the gameplay is still solid, and I can confidently say that at least this video game is better than Superman Returns, and that's crazy. A beat 'em up side-scrolling video game is better than an open world video game that had a lot of profit put into this video game, and that's a baffling thought to consider. But after 2006, we have been starved as Superman fans. We haven't received a true video game that is starring Superman. Every single video game Superman has appeared in throughout the last 20 years have all been features as a supporting character or a supporting role. He has never starred in his own game, and this needs to change. We are tired of the injustices. We are tired of the Mortal Kombat versus DC universes. Even though I'm not tired of the Lego Batman franchise, I just wish Superman could star in his own video game, man. And now I have been yapping for 7 to 8 minutes so far, and I have been talking about this topic because I saw a Twitter post recently that inspired me to make this video. There is this Twitter account known as the Gameverse, and he asked this daring question. He asked this $1 million question that has been on the minds of millions of Superman fans and millions of DC fans as well. And this question is, why don't we have a proper Superman game yet? Now, when you look at the comments and the quote retweets of this post, you are having a lot of different opinions as to why Superman hasn't received a new proper video game. Some people are just dumb and they just say because he's the most boring bullshit character. Come on, man, we are in 2026 and we are still having these horrendous takes of Superman being a boring character. Get out of here in this conversation. But we are also looking at a lot of other opinions and a lot of other answers, and the people just think Superman is boring. People just think that he will be too overpowered. People think that, you know, if you have a Superman game where Superman is overpowered and everything else feels like flies and ants, that game is going to be boring. But I have a counter argument to that. I have something that I want to get off my chest. I want to put my own 2 cents in for this conversation. And what I want to say is that that type of video game can happen. We are literally experiencing this when we play the God of War franchise. When you play Kratos, Kratos is an overpowered, crazy, maniacal person. He battles gods. He kills gods. want. He beheads and slaughters these deities. Kratos is an overpowered individual. He wields a lot of powers and abilities, and these video games are very fun. They're very engaging. They are actually good. These type of video games, in my honest opinion, are some of the best video games that PlayStation ever published in their lifetime. That's why the God of War franchise is still chugging strong. The God of War franchise is a prime example on how to create a Superman game. Sure, yeah, these video games are not open world by any chance. These video games are linear, but if we can have a Superman video game that is linear like the God of War franchise, but is still showcasing Superman's overpowered abilities, this video game concept could be very profitable for the Superman franchise. If you have Superman just battling the Intergang, right, or battling apocalyptic forces like the Parademons, or hell, just battling Brainiac probes, these henchmen for these big bad villains like Brainiac, Darkseid, and so on and so forth, they have the power to hurt Superman. They have the power to even incapacitate Superman. So it's something that can happen if some video game developers could just lock in and they could go that route. And I will also wager this second point. This second point is the Dragon Ball franchise. Look, we have many Dragon Ball video games like the Budokai Tenkaichi franchise or the Xenoverse franchise, or hell, even Dragon Ball Kakarot. A lot of these games showcase overpowered abilities from these larger than life characters. A lot of these games are fighting games. Dragon Ball Kakarot is like an open world interactive video game. It's not a role play video game by any stretch, but this game lets you as a player have free reign on this universe. You can fly to any location you want as the story is progressing. You can interact with anyone inside of this universe. You can have fun. You can do whatever you want. You can destroy cars. You can shoot beams at dragons and dinosaurs walking. You can battle a lot of annoying ass side henchmen, and you can basically do whatever you want. You can fly at the fastest speeds. You can run at the fastest speeds. You can do whatever you want in Dragon Ball Kakarot. And this game worked for the Dragon Ball franchise, so I'm not even gonna lie to you, this game could possibly also serve Superman well in his own franchise. So if the DC developers just lock in and they make a video game like that, then we could actually potentially see a new AAA Superman game. But my own opinion is that I want a Superman game that resembles the Insomniac and Arkham franchises. Now, by me saying that, I don't want that game to be grounded. What I mean by that is that I want this potential fake Superman game to have the same love that those franchises have, because the developers that worked on both franchises loved the lore for Spider-Man and Batman. They added so many things that only comic readers would know. They added a lot of elements that only true diehard Spider-Man and Batman fans would know. So I want that same type of care to be put in a potential Superman game. And honestly, man, I want this Superman game to be open world. I know I just talked about a God of War type of Superman game. Look, that can also happen. We can have both. I don't really give a damn. We can have both Superman video games that really resemble God of War and both of the Insomniac and Arkham franchises. But I want this Superman game to also resemble the Lego Batman 3 and Lego DC Universe video games, because in both games you could fly to many planets with ease. You could travel at light speed with no hassle, with no problem. You could go to a lot of other planets. So in this hypothetical Superman game, I would want Superman to have the ability to use his super speed to fly away from Earth, and he can go to other planets like Warworld, New Genesis, Apocalypse, the Fifth Dimension, aka Mr. Mixexpidilix World, Bizarre Bizarro World, Kolu, and hell, you could go to many other places like Oa. You could go to Thanagar. You could go to a lot of other planets. The possibilities are endless if the video game developers could lock in. I don't want a Superman game that's strictly tied down to Metropolis or to Earth. I want Superman to have the free will that he actually possesses in the Superman comics, because if you read Superman comics, you know that a lot of his stories are set on different planets. Superman is not always confined to the planet Earth, so that is what I would want in a potential Superman game. Obviously, previous video games like Superman Returns and Superman Shadow of Apocalypse did not have the hardware for that, even though Shadow of Apocalypse I think had a mission of Superman being on Apocalypse or being on something similar to that, but obviously those games were old generation video games, so you know how technology is getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So we are living in a technological world that the possibilities are near endless for video games. So Superman theoretically could actually travel to these universes and worlds with ease. I would want that. That would be peak. It could work if they actually locked in. And another thing that I would want in an hypothetical Superman video game is that Superman's overpowered abilities should be very overpowered. I don't want to see Superman being nerfed. Now, as I say this and before I continue, I also want side missions and side quests that show Superman stopping bank robbers. He is stopping people that are stealing cars. He's stopping a high-speed chase. You know, he's stopping all of the mundane tasks. He's actually being a superhero on planet Earth, but those should be only restricted to side quests. I don't want to see Superman beating up the run-of-the-mill robbers and criminals that don't wield any apocalyptian tech/armor like the Intergang or Brainiac probes or hell Thanagarians who are actually pretty strong and durable. I don't want to see that in the main storyline. Superman's main storyline should show and depict our boy battling villains like how he does in the comics and TV shows. The battles should resemble the God of War franchise and some Dragon Ball video games. These battles should be legendary like Lobo, Doomsday, Imperiex, Brainiac. Hell, he could battle Bizarro, Metallo, Parasite, and armored Lex Luthor, Darkseid. Hell, if he's the main big bad boss of that game, Darkseid could be added as a potential threat for Superman. These fights should resemble Thor taking on Kratos in God of War Ragnarok, or Kratos versus Baldur in God of War 2018, or Kratos versus Zeus in God of War 3. The lists are endless. The possibilities are endless. I want Superman to feel like Superman. I want the weight of his punches to feel like Superman is actually punching someone. Now that I'm talking about the weight of his attacks, I also want collateral damage to be a thing, because if it's not a thing, then that shit will not be realistic in a Superman universe, because when Superman is battling a lot of these villains, a lot of buildings are destroyed during the process. So I want this hypothetical video game to have this, but I also do not want to see a return of the Metropolis meter, or hypothetically speaking, when you're on planet Kolu, the Kolu meter, or on War World, the War World meter. I don't want that to happen. I actually do want the possibility of a world exploding, and if it explodes, it's game over. That would be cool, because you know Superman failed to save this world from being destroyed or taken over. That would be cool, but don't bring back the Metropolis meter. Do something like this. Let's say in battle, Superman is fighting a lot of henchmen or a lot of villains at the same time, or he's just indulging in an one-on-one fight and a lot of collateral damage happened. Some people get hurt and some people got killed. I want there to be a meter of love or hate from the public. It doesn't matter if it's on Earth, Colu, Warworld, etc., etc. I want the universe and the public to look at Superman as if they hate him or they love him, depending on these battles and these boss fights. Hypothetically speaking, let's say Superman failed to save 2 people even though he saved 15 people. I want the families for these 2 people that died to go on an entire smear campaign on Superman. I want the public's view on Superman to change, whether they respect Superman for saving as much as he could even though he couldn't save the other 2 people, or the public to just completely bastardize and ostracize Superman just because he couldn't save 2 people even though he saved the other 15 people. That could potentially create new branching story arcs and storylines. I want a lot of these stories to have multiple endings and multiple opportunities and multiple routes. I want the story to not feel so linear, because you know in the comics, right, when Superman actually messes up, the public really does not like Superman during that particular storyline. Of course, they will eventually like Superman again, but during a particular Superman story that is showcasing Superman's reckless actions or inactions, these stories can actually be very, very interesting, because it is showing us that the public is resenting Superman, or the public could love Superman. You could have Superman save every single person. You could have Superman save the day and he could beat the bad guy in record time. I want there to be new branching storylines that are showcasing the universe just loving Superman, and they're just doing a lot of things to love Superman. And hell, you can see some corporations, they are trying to endorse Superman. They are trying to have Superman endorse them. You know what I mean? Like, I can't really explain it like that, but if you know like the Telltale games and you know the new modern video games that have a lot of story paths that you can go and you could actually experience, and you could actually beat the game, we can replay the game, and you can actually have a new ending or a new outcome. You know, this could actually lead to a lot of replayability for this hypothetical Superman game. That would be very, very interesting. And you know, the side quest for this game could range from saving cats to helping people with their weddings to interacting with the city. I want Superman to actually interact with the world, with the planet, with the universe, with the galaxy. I want this hypothetical game to feel like an actual real reality, instead of like Superman Returns, when in that video game Superman could not interact with any civilian except when he could just pick them up and drop them near an ambulance truck, because you know he needed to save them, and that was that video game's way of saving people. I don't want that. I want Superman to feel like he's an actual neighborhood friend. And when he's Clark Kent, I want Superman to feel like he's a real reporter. You know, obviously his powers will be shut down a bit, but you know, he will still feel strong, he will still feel durable, but obviously he won't feel like the Man of Steel, because he's your Daily Planet reporter, Clark Kent. I want this game to have a lot of interactability. Superman can interact with anyone and anything. Superman can enter any door he wants, because you know, he literally can. He has super speed, he has light speed, he can phase his body into any building like the Flash. You know, Superman has his microscopic vision. He can look from this planet onto hell, a different universe. I want Superman to feel overpowered like that. That could be a great Superman game. I don't know what I'm even trying to convey with this video. This is just my opinion and thoughts for a potential Superman video game if DC could lock in. But all of these things could be good, because it could answer a lot of problems with previous Superman games. People were complaining that Superman did not interact with anybody. You could fix that by having Superman mingle with people. He can talk with people. He can sit down on a park and listen to an NPC tell him about their day. You know, he could have lunch with his friends like, you know, Bruce Wayne or Lois, you know, his wife like Lois or Jimmy Jimmy Olsen, or a lot of other people that work inside the Daily Planet, or other friends that he has in his life like Lana Lang and John Henry Irons, aka The Steel. I want Superman to actually feel like he is helping people. I want Superman to have an emphasis on helping people. That could be very good. It could have a lot of replayability, and a lot of these side quests could have a lot of replayability. Or if you just want to chill and just hang out with a random NPC, just like go out to eat, just grab a burger, you can just do that. And in some comic panels, Superman actually eats with civilians on top of roofs. They eat, they talk, they mingle, they hang out. That could be very interesting if this potential Superman game could be made. I want this type of video game to happen. It could happen. We have seen this in the Insomniac Spider-Man games. We have seen this in other video games. Why can't Superman get the same love? It is possible, but DC is just not trying to lock in for Superman in terms of the video game standpoint. Now, I hope James Gunn could right these wrongs by making Superman and by turning Superman into an undeniable character. So basically the video game franchise is going to try their hardest to create a new Superman game, but that is just wishful thinking on my part. What do you guys think about a potential Superman game? I rambled for a while, don't get me wrong. I just wanted to show you guys my thoughts about a potential Superman game. It can work. Superman should be overpowered in his own game. They should not nerf him in any stretch of the mark. His henchmen should be consistent of people that are actually strong, like the Intergang or Metallo's robots, Brainiac probes, Lex Luthor's robots, Apocalyptian forces like the Parademons. We have a lot of possibilities that could be unlocked if DC just locked in. Man, bro, I rambled for a while, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm out. Peace.